Welcome back, subscribers. New viewers, welcome and give that subscribe button a smack because this channel is going to bring forth the most information about the nature of the universe and your involvement in it than any other institution or news source that anyone will ever see in this timeline. I have been studying the mind, consciousness, and psychology since 2014, and I eventually came across a formula for emotion as well as its function involved in awareness. I want to begin at archetypes in language. Emotion is just compressed information. Archetypes, not as described by Jung to define an individual's physical placement in the universe and introspective ideologies, but the physical boundaries known to those individuals, such as time and space, or even information as a whole, are only perceivable to us with the sensory awareness capable of picking up on that information and using emotional reinforcement to fit it into memory. For an individual looking for an answer on something relative to their interests, first requires will propagated from physical consciousness. Archetypal information propagates emotional translation with a medium present, memory, meaning passive archetypal reasoning defines functional potential. Much like the scientific method, the mind, on the other hand, is prone to misjudgment and creative failure, ultimately leading to death or psychosis from improper or motivated reinforcement. Much like peer pressure, uninformed or uneducated decision-making is a direct result of reinforced language or focalized memory exposure to archetypal information. At this point, those of you that took college-level psychology classes are looking at me like I have no footing in the preconceptions of psychology, but I can assure you I haven't been to college, and all of my information I have was gained in 2 high school psychology classes. Shout out to my teacher, Mr. McIntyre, or taken from the internet. Neuroscience majors, on the other hand, I know for a fact you're following. I am trying to keep this as centralized as possible, so bear with me. I'm not going to go out on a bunch of theoretical hyperboles in this video. Instead, I will describe the process of emotional cognition. Information is physical, justified by archetypal order. Instead of saying information is factual when we can agree on it, it's better for it to fit criteria we can use to define it. Archetypal order is the physical property and function of matter states' pre-subjective interpretation. If information follows a mathematical formula, this is it. Archetypal order played the role of universal formation and has brought us to this point in time. Speaking of time, time is relative to electromagnetism in emotional reinforcement, as well as the function of gravity. This is important because we wouldn't be here to interpret it without the flow of information. As far as we know, emotional reinforcement is the product of focalized motive responsible for emotional potentiation, as emotional potentiation is the instinctive function of focalized motive. Potentiation is the function of state-to-state communication in the brain responsible for physical output of emotional potential. This means emotion is the functional language of archetypal translation to physical state potential. This is brought about by motivated function of memory exposed to archetypal information in the peripheral subconscious. The brain is made up of several parts, but it comes together as emotional potential from conversion of information into electromagnetic signals relative to focalized memory. Emotion plays the role of instructional language, reinforcing locus focalization by means of functional potentiation relative to motivated translation. What is motivated translation, you ask? It's the entire mind's focalized state of informational conversion to state potentiation. Not only is it instinctual, but it's passive. This means archetypal information is constant, and so is our creativity. Emotional equilibrium is maintained by the functions responsible for state potentiation, epigenetics, and quantum mechanics. With that being said, I feel I can move on to the structure of emotion. Emotion is created by peripheral subconscious interaction with focalized memory. It is the process of motivated reinforcement from passive focalized sensory interpretation. As physical information follows specific function, emotion follows archetypal order. States in the mind are focalized emotionally to passively follow motivated function. Emotional reinforcement is the focalized coping mechanism used to translate sensory stimulus and maintain state potential. As it would be interpreted, emotion serves as the passive physiological function of electromagnetic impulse connecting fact to creativity. It follows specific rules regarding instinctual state function of maintaining emotional motive and passive memory focalization, all relative to inborn motive. Before I move to the algorithm involved in biochemistry, I'm going to go over a couple of terms. Nostalgia, pain, stress, confidence, and fear. All of these terms are part of the function of archetypal translation, the passive function of sensory impact to the focalized peripheral subconscious before emotional reinforcement. They also play a role in understanding an individual's language and inborn motive from the perspective that language is emotionally reinforced by individuals' inborn motive. Nostalgia and pain as incorporated by myself to define sensory infliction on the focalized peripheral subconscious, is the passive translation of sensory information to archetypal by the focalized peripheral subconscious. Stress is the archetypal information stagnating in the short-term memory before focalized emotional reinforcement. Confidence and fear are terms of the English language to define emotional state reinforcement. Instead of looking at the emotion structure blindly, we now have some words and some basic structure to look back on and compare to the function of individual qualia. Each state has a function for focalized emotional potential. Information is picked up by sensory states in the central nervous system and converted into archetypal information in the focalized peripheral subconscious depending on the emotional focalization of both the peripheral subconscious and potential reinforcement state. There, the focalized electromagnetic motive, also known as memory, converts archetypal sense into emotional potential. It follows an algorithm. State function plus state focalized potential equals motivated memory reinforcement potential. I haven't been to college to study neuroscience. I've done all of this on my own volition. There's no way I'm directly translating it into the biochemical makeup of consciousness. Until I get a tuition, this basic structure will have to compensate.